Class 6. I welcome you all to Class 6 and I am Mrs. Madhusri Mojumdar. I will teach you English literature. 6 and 7, both classes. Now today I will teach you Daffodils. Daffodils, a poem, a very famous poem written by William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth, you should know that William Wordsworth was an English romantic poet. He always relates, that is, connects human relationship with nature. And you must know that all the poets all over the world, they are basically very much nature lover. They love nature very much. They always appreciate the beauty of nature. Now, first of all, what I will do, I will recite the whole poem and you listen very carefully. If I recite the whole poem, that will create an impression on your mind. Now, listen carefully. Daffodils. Daffodils, another thing I want to mention, always the name of the poem is very important. It reflects the main idea of the poem. Here, daffodils means flower. The color of the flowers is yellow, yellow flower. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. This is the first paragraph. Now the second paragraph. Continuous as the stars that shines and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a joy-count company. I guessed and guessed, but little thought that wealth the show to me had brought. So up till third paragraph I finished. After that, line by line, I will explain the poem to you. And now the last paragraph, which is also very important. Now the last paragraph of the poem. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. So my students, here is the end of the poem. Now, one thing I want to mention you that the poet William Wordsworth, very famous poet and great lover of nature, he here appreciates, that is, praises the beauty of the yellow daffodils. Getting the sunshine, it appears like the golden daffodils. Now, what is the main idea of the poem Daffodils? Now I will tell you the main idea of the poem Daffodils. The main idea of the poem is nature's beauty with a mix of happiness and loneliness. This is also very important, with a mix of happiness and loneliness. When the poet becomes lonely, he feels sad, but his mind becomes happy and content. Content means satisfied. When he imagines of dancing daffodils. Now again I want to repeat the main idea of the poem Daffodils. The main idea of the poem is nature's beauty with a mix of happiness and loneliness. When the poet becomes lonely, he feels sad, but his mind becomes happy and content when he imagines of dancing daffodils. Now students, I want to tell you the first paragraph, explain the first and second paragraph to you today. Next day, next two paragraphs and few important meanings of the poem. Now first paragraph of the poem, the meaning, the explanation of the first paragraph of the poem. 15th April 1802. So what's the date? 15th April 1802, in which Wordsworth and his sister Dorothy came across a long belt of daffodils. So Wordsworth's sister, name of the sister is Dorothy. Dorothy. They went together along the long belt of daffodils. The poet was traveling aimlessly, just like a cloud, over the hills and valleys of the lake, districts surrounded by mountains in England. At that time, he suddenly came across a large number of golden daffodils. Beside the lake and under the trees, the flowers were fluttering and dancing in the breeze. The poet directly compares himself to a cloud as he was wandering with aim just like the clouds. The poet here compares himself to clouds. He was wandering like the lonely cloud. The poet personifies the flowers by saying that they were fluttering like birds or butterflies. So the daffodils were fluttering like birds or butterflies and dancing like human beings. And the daffodils were dancing like human beings. This is the first paragraph, meaning of the first paragraph. Now, second paragraph. The flowers are compared to the stars. In the first paragraph, the poet compares himself with the cloud. Now, in the second paragraph, flowers are compared to the stars. They stretched in a continuous line, just like the stars in a galaxy, like the Milky Way. Moreover, the daffodils were shining and twinkling as the stars. The poet compared the flowers as heavenly as the stars. So, the poet compares the flowers, daffodils, as the stars, heavenly as the stars. The flowers are dancing along the never-ending line and the shore of a bay. So the flowers are dancing and they were stretched like a never-ending line along the bay. The poet says, 10,000 saw I at a glance. That indicates that the poet has never seen so many daffodils at once. So the poet says 10,000 at a glance. It means that the poet has never seen so many daffodils at once. So he is just overjoyed. The poet is overjoyed. And one thing again I want to mention you that William Wordsworth is a great, great lover of nature. The daffodils were tossing their heads as if they were dancing in happiness. The daffodils were tossing their heads as if they were dancing in happiness. Actually, the poet was amazed at the beauty of the flowers. So he found everything around him joyful. So he found everything around him joyful. Now students, now I decided previously that at the beginning of the class, third and fourth paragraph in my next class, let us explain it today. Now first and second paragraph I already finished. Now the third paragraph. The poet was gazing constantly at the flowers and enjoying their beauty. The poet gazed at the flowers for a long time, forgetting his surroundings. The flowers had brought wealth for him. The flowers had brought wealth. Here wealth means the enormous beauty of nature. The flowers had brought enormous beauty of nature to the poet. Now the fourth paragraph. The sight of the flowers was so important. Here sight, S-I-G-H-T. Sight means the scene. The scene of the flowers was so important in his life. Whenever he lies on his bed in a vacant or thoughtful mood, the daffodils flash upon his inner eye. That is, the daffodils flash in his imagination. The daffodils have become an everlasting memory for the poet. Whenever he is lonely, the memory became his blessings of loneliness. So you know, my students, every person has to overcome some moments of loneliness. So when the poet becomes lonely, when he feels very sad, the sight of the golden daffodils flash upon his mind's eye. Whenever he sees the flowers in his imagination, his heart fills with pleasure and his mind dances with the dancing daffodils. So the fourth paragraph, which is very important, let me explain it again. The sight of the flowers was so important in his life. Whenever he lies in his bed in a vacant or thoughtful mood, the daffodils flash upon his inner eye, that is, in his imagination. The daffodils have become an everlasting memory for the poet. Whenever he is lonely, the memory became his blessing of loneliness. Whenever he sees the flowers in his imagination, his heart fills with pleasure and his mind dances with the dancing daffodils. Now, my students, I think it is clear to you, the poet appreciates, praises the beauty of the daffodils, and he compares himself as a wandering cloud in the first paragraph, first line. And then he saw the golden daffodils, as if the daffodils were dancing in a never-ending line. And in the last paragraph, the poet tells us that whenever he is in a lonely mood, he was very much lonely, feels very sad, the sight of the golden daffodils flash upon his mind's eye. Now, I want to show you few meaning. Look at my copy, all of you. That is the few meaning. Meaning, now, number one meaning over vales. All of you write down. Actually, it is in the book also. Over vales. That is over valleys. VALLEYS. Number two, host. A person who receives other people as guest. Bay. A broad inlet of the sea where the land curves inward. Number four, sprightly, lively, full of energy. Number five, joy count, that is cheerful. Number six, vacant, that is empty. Number seven, pensive, that is involving in serious thought. Number eight, bliss of solitude, that is blessing of loneliness. So let me repeat the meaning again. Number one, over vales, that is over valleys. The daffodils were dancing over vales and over the hills. Number two, host, a person who receives other people as guest. Number three, bay, a broad inlet of the sea where the land curves inward. Number four, sprightly, lively, full of energy. Number five, joy count, that is cheerful. Number six, vacant, that is empty. Number seven, pensive, involving in serious thought. Number eight, bliss of solitude, that is blessing of loneliness. Now here, my students, this is the end of the chapter, but again I want to repeat you the main idea of the poem. The main idea of the poem is nature's beauty with a mix of happiness and loneliness. When the poet becomes lonely, he feels sad, but his mind becomes happy and content when he imagines of dancing daffodils. And again I want to mention another thing. Poet William Wordsworth is an English romantic poet. He always relates, that is connects, human relationship with nature. Okay, thank you. In my next class, I will proceed to my next chapter. Meanwhile, after going home, go thoroughly the poem. Okay, thank you so much.